Housing deficit has been one of the contemporary social challenges considered within the social policies in Nigeria. And that's where we go tonight. Good evening and welcome to Weekend File. Now, the provision of affordable housing for Nigerians by successive administrations had remained a Herculean task over the past 4 decades. With about 17 million housing deficits, experts believe that with annual population growth rate of 3.5%, Nigeria needs additional 1 million housing units annually to reduce the deficit by 2033. Housing inadequacies, particularly for the low-income group, have been complicated by high rate of population growth. And the problem has become so glaring that greater number of people living in urban areas in most Nigerian cities live in housing environments that are considered dehumanizing, and that those that have access to decent houses do so at astronomical cost. But the current administration says that it commenced direct housing supply across the 6 geopolitical zones since 2015 as part of strategic intervention measures to ameliorate 17 million housing deficits. Other assurances made by federal government is to create additional middle class of at least 2 million new home owners and 4 million new home winners by 2019, and that it is reviewing the collateral qualification to make funding for home ownership easier with 15 to 30 years mortgage terms. Now, what are the roles of other major stakeholders in the housing industry? Federal Mortgage Bank, Federal Housing Authority, and Real Estate Developers Association. We will interrogate all of that in tonight's program. And our guest tonight is Joseph Toluhi, is the Zonal Director, Northwest National Housing Program. I am Kieran Umayo. Welcome to the program as we now bring you the news which comes first. And we begin on a cheerful note as there are indications that tertiary institutions in the country are in for good year 2019. This follows the approval of the 161 billion naira tertiary education trust fund by President Muhammadu Buhari. The Trust Fund Executive Secretary Abdullahi Bichi Bafa announced the approval while briefing the media in Abuja. Ado Adamu was there for NTA News.
2019 was received with joy by the nation's tertiary education subsector, with President Muhammadu Buhari's special New Year gift of a whopping sum of 161 billion naira with the approval of TED Fund 2018 budget. The approval, which heralds the commencement of full intervention activities for the year, is seen as another boost to the tertiary education institutions by the present administration. Executive Secretary of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund leads those who believes the presidential approval will consolidate interventions in line with the government policy trust.
We are specifically grateful for the non-interference stance of Mr. President, which allows the fund to operate within the provisions of its Establishment Act. This noble stance of Mr. President is consistent with his well-known and highly cherished values of promoting transparency, accountability, good governance, and the respect of the rule of law.
The fund is already reaping benefits of innovations introduced by the Executive Secretary, with remarkable improvement on interventions access by beneficiary institutions, increasing by up to 93.5% in 2018. Even the education tax collection has improved under the present administration.
The increased collection will obviously translate to a bigger allocation for public tertiary education institutions, and therefore more projects, more scholarships, more research funds in the institutions.
Breakdown of this 161 billion naira approval indicates that each eligible public university is allocated 785 million naira, polytechnics 536 million naira, and 510 million naira to each college of education. Ado Ademwalso, NTA News.
Meanwhile, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has called on Nigerians to avoid making the mistake of pulling the nation back into years of underdevelopment and hopelessness by desperate politicians, but ensure that President Muhammadu Buhari is re-elected to continue his good works for the nation. The Vice President said this in a separate town hall meeting held in Igbeti, Igboho, Kishi, and Saki areas of Oyo State. The APC Women and Youth Presidential Campaign team has kicked off its Northwest Zonal campaign for the re-election of President Muhammadu Buhari in Kano. Wife of the President, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, appealed to the electorate to vote massively for the All Progressives Congress so that President Muhammadu Buhari will reposition Nigeria and restore its glory in the Committee of Nations. Political correspondent Salihu Abdullahi reports.
Women and youth constitute greater part of Nigeria's voting population. So the Buhari administration, since its inception, made conscious efforts to enhance their social and political status and increase the participation of these categories in electioneering processes. Barely 3 days after its inauguration, the Women and Youth Presidential Campaign team is in Kano, where they flagged off the Northwest Zonal campaign for the re-election of President Buhari and all APC candidates in the 2019 elections. Wife of the president, Aisha Muhammadu Buhari, says continuity in governance will guarantee and sustain purposeful leadership for better service delivery and development.
The reason I decided to embark on the campaign is to ensure the actualization of dividends of democracy and ensure the empowerment of Nigerian youths.
Other speakers acknowledged the significance of Northwest in the quest for electoral victory and want them to take the message of good governance under the Buhari administration to the grassroots. The people of Kano are ready to show solidarity to President Muhammadu Buhari and are ready to vote for his re-election.
The continuous support of Mr. President in all his social intervention programs. For many of you that are on the Empower and other social intervention program, we assure you that that will continue and more will be done for you to change Nigeria.
The people love President Muhammadu Buhari, simple and short. Why do they love him? Because he is honest.
The event, attended by wives of the APC governors, featured formal reception of some defectors into the APC fold. In Abuja, Salihu Abdullahi, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari has sent his warm regards to the provost of the Nigerian Institute of Journalism, Gbemiga Ogunleye, on his 60th birthday. A statement by the Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, says President Buhari believes that the press and the courageous and brilliant journalists who daily make sacrifices to verify, clarify, and publish the truth remain the custodian of Nigeria's democracy. The president commended Ogunleye for providing good leadership for the institution that prepares future journalists and hones the skills of those already in the profession. As he turns 60, the president urges the editor and administrator to use his versatile experience in journalism and legal practice to ensure that the principles of accuracy, balance, and fairness remain sacrosanct, thereby uplifting the nation. President Buhari also prays that the Almighty God grants Ogunleye long life and good health to serve the nation even more. Now, the remains of former military governor of Old Kano State and FCT Minister Air Vice Marshal Hamza Abdullahi have been laid to rest in Kano. Mansour Aliyu Hassan reports.
The remains of Air Vice Marshal Hamza Abdullahi, retired, was flown into the country through the Malam Aminu Kano International Airport from Germany, where he died after a brief illness. Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje of Kano State, Jigawa State Deputy Governor Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja, MS of Hadeja, Kazori, and many others conveyed the corpse in the Nigerian Air Force ambulance to the Kano MS Palace. The funeral prayer was led by the Chief Imam of Hadeja, Malam Abdurrahman Yusuf. Emir Muhammad Sanusi II, former Jigawa State Governor Sulalamido, colleagues and associates of AVM Hamza Abdullahi, retired, were in attendance. He was later buried at Farm Center Cemetery in Taroni local government area of Kano State.
I served under him as Commissioner for Local Government. I lost somebody who loved me. I lost somebody who loved our emirate.
He was my best friend. I was his best partner. And we went along very, very well.
And all the good works that he has done should never be forgotten.
Air Vice Marshal Hamza Abdullahi served as military governor of the old Kano state between 1984 and 1986. A later appointed minister of the Federal Capital Territory, he left behind 2 wives and children. In Kano, Mansour Aliyu Hassan, NTA News.
Disaster was averted when combined efforts of good Nigerians and residents put off a wildfire that threatened the multi-millionaire federal government's electricity power substation in Kurufi town in Katsina State. The fire, which allegedly started from neighboring compound, was said to have threatened equipment and drums of transformer oil worth millions of naira. Lawal Ahmed Matazu, who was present at the scene of the incident, reports that the fire would have caused serious disruption of electricity supply and heavy loss to the sector. The Chief of Staff to the President, Abba Kyari, led a high-powered delegation to Katsina State to commiserate with the The Chief of Staff to the President, Abba Kyari, led a high-powered delegation to Katsina State to commiserate with Ambassador Zakari Ibrahim over the death of his son on behalf of President Muhammadu Buhari. On arrival at the Umaru Musa Yar'Adua International Airport, the entourage proceeded to the residence of Ambassador Ibrahim, whose son, Shamsuddin Zakari, passed away on Tuesday at the Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, Kano. After a brief illness, prayers were offered for the repose of the soul of the deceased and fortitude for the family to bear the loss. One of those on the entourage was the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Malam Garba Shehu. And meanwhile, the federal government has sent a high-powered delegation to condole the people of Kano and Jigawa states over the death of Air Vice Marshal Hamza Abdullahi, who died at the German hospital after a brief illness. The delegation, led by the Chief of Staff to the President, Abba Kyari, extends President Buhari's condolence message to the Emir of Hadejia and the Governor Abdullahi Omar Ganduje of Kano State. And on a sober note, the death has been announced of Hajia Bridget Aisha Lemu, wife of the first Grand Qadi of Niger State, Sheikh Ahmed Lemu. A statement from the family said funeral prayers for late Hajia Aisha Lemu comes up tomorrow, January 6, 2019, at the Islamic Education Trust, Mina, by 10 o'clock in the morning. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed deep shock over the death of Aisha Ahmed Lemu, describing her as a repository of knowledge whose depth of scholarship was overwhelming and enviable. The statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Malam Garba Shehu, says she dedicated her life to scholarship and moral uplifting of her society, producing massive literature on religious education while alive. The President prays to Allah to bless her soul and reward her good deeds abundantly with paradise. He extends his condolences to Sheikh Ahmed Lemu and the family in Niger State. And Muhammad Rabiu Ali reports. Now, the reporter is not yet ready. Now, the death has been announced of Sir George Ikechukwu Odabi, who died recently at the age of 84. A statement from Professor George Lota Odabi on behalf of the family shows that Christian Week comes up on Monday, 7th January, at Odabi's close Hollywood Mabushi, Abuja. His remains leaves Abuja for Obo Delta State on Thursday, 10th January 2019 for Christian Week at Ikechukwu Road, Abo in Delta State. A burial service comes up at St. Columbus Catholic Church, Abo, Delta State by 10 a.m. May his soul rest in peace. So thank you for staying with us up to this moment on Weekend Fire. There is no doubt that sustaining housing development, especially to the low-income group of the society, has become a huge challenge in Nigeria. And this has been compounded by high drifting of people from rural to urban centers, resulting in proliferation of dilapidated structures and high costs by building materials. Now, how is government confronting the problem? Learn more on this in our correspondence report coming up ahead.
Politics democratically affords a level playing field for everyone who carries the will and courage to lead a people in the right direction.
I wish to call on women to go and spread the good news and accomplishment of the present administration.
Women inevitably are the right source to pave this path that can bring good governance, structural stability, rapid economic growth, and basic human rights to all its citizenry. There is no better time than now to experience their prowess in this era, when women all over the world are showing that they have the right tools to build a nation. The Buhari-led administration and APC have aligned with its purpose to involve women with the right vision. The idea is not just for participation, but inclusive participation.
We can exert more power than we would have individually in garnering the majority of registered women and youth voters to vote for the Buhari-Osinbajo team come 2019.
This is what change is all about. This is the vision of the All Progressives Congress. This is for a new Nigeria.
The Candidates, a presidential town hall co-production between Daria Media and NTA, supported by the MacArthur Foundation. Kingsley Moghalu and running mate Omar Getso of the Young Progressive Party, Muhammadu Buhari and running mate Yemi Osinbajo of the All Progressives Congress, Omoyele Sowore and running mate Rabiu Ahmed Rufai of the African Action Congress, Atiku Abubakar and running mate Peter Obi of the People's Democratic Party. Moderator Kadria Ahmed. Dates starts Wednesday, 9th January 2019 with the candidates of the Young Progressive Party. Town hall venue, Sheraton Hotel, Abuja, from 7 to 9 p.m. The candidates will be broadcast live on NTA and other partner TV and radio stations, as well as streamed online on NTA and dtv.media. If you're over 18 and want to be part of the audience, apply online at daria.media or use the hashtag NGTheCandidates or participate online using the hashtag NGTheCandidates.
Nigerians, the presidential and national assembly elections will be conducted on Saturday, February 16, 2019. In addition, the governorship and state house of assembly elections will be conducted on Saturday, March 2nd, 2019. Accreditation and voting will take place at the same time between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. Card readers will be used for the accreditation of voters. At 2 p.m., voters still on the queue will be allowed to vote. Come with your permanent voter's card to the polling unit. Only persons with their permanent voter's cards, PVCs, and whose names are on the voters' register will be accredited and allowed to vote. Take advantage of the simple accreditation and voting procedure. Vote the candidate of your choice. This message is from the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. INEC, making your votes count, consolidating our democracy.
This is my PPA that brought me to this place through Empower Volunteer. I was posted there as a class teacher. I teach in primary 6 here. So it is after closing by 2 p.m. that I have time to go to my extensions, that is my plantation, my poultry proposed site.
The tiers of government also means the levels of government. What do I call it? The levels of government. The Empower 2016 said they work assiduously with us and they perform wonderfully well. Thank you.
It is that time of the year when we appreciate all those that mean so much to us. All sponsors, our clients, government at all levels, corporate bodies, advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, political parties, business, and above all, you, our esteemed viewers. Together we made 2018 great. Together we shall make 2019 even greater. And that is why we say thank you. Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year.
Now, the year 2018 witnessed a decisive approach towards tackling housing deficit in the country with a deliberate execution of the National Housing Program in 34 states across the Federation, including the FCT. Experts say this commitment and the proposed annual provision of 100,000 housing units have raised the hope of Nigerians desirous of having a roof over their heads. Joseph Johnson retrospects into 2018 and, of course, prospects of our ongoing efforts in the sector.
With about 170 million people in Nigeria, 17 million housing deficit figure to an ordinary man may not sound worrisome, but to the experts, it is an alarming gap that seriously needs to be bridged. The concerns by these experts are, however, easing with the introduction of a coordinated housing policy and schemes, like the National Housing Program, which has in each of the states about 70 to 80 housing units. These range from 1, 2 and 3 bedroom flats and a condominium. The seeming Herculean task for successive governments in addressing the challenge has seen a vigorous attempt to remedy the situation. But to deliver very good houses, efficiency is key, and that perhaps explains why the ministry's officials in 2018 engaged in series of on-the-spot assessments of the project to ensure quality job delivery. The project sites have become sources of economic income to members of communities. From the laborers, suppliers to vendors, the projects have brought fortune as they look forward to actually owning the houses.
I sell a lot every day. I do make 30,000, 20,000 a day. They are not that much.
We are very appreciative for the federal government because they have done a lot of job to us.
So what I see is a good improvement, because if something like that will be happening, then everybody will be able to afford a house.
The year 2019 promises to be even more rewarding for the housing sector, as many of the projects will be completed, giving room for new ones to begin. As the government says, it is continuous.
And from Nasarawa State, correspondent Joshua Ojito reports that expensive partnership under the federal government National Housing Delivery Program has raised hopes of prospective owners to a lifetime-changing opportunity to own decent and affordable houses. Here is Joshua Ojito with the rest of the story.
In Lafia neighborhood, about 5 kilometers from the city center, along Shandam Road, are the first site of newly constructed houses under the government housing program. The contractors are on the last lap of road construction, electrification and other services.
We had some little itches because of the rainy season, but we have embarked seriously. We are firing from all cylinders to make sure we achieve the best.
That is done not only for civil servants or public servants. Everybody, even somebody selling tomato in the market, can benefit from that. And that is why we are telling people that Buhari is somebody that we must work very hard to bring him back.
In addition to the prospects of ownership, the local community feels the location of the estate has opened up to the area for more things to come.
People are coming from outside other states to come here to establish their home here because of this development, because of the housing estate. So we are very happy with the Buhari administration.
In another part of Lafia, the federal government housing project under a tripartite arrangement is being developed exclusively for the Nigerian workers.
There's hardly any part of the southeastern geopolitical zone that has not benefited immensely from housing projects under the current federal government's integrated housing scheme, FISH. Chinyere Okoye reports that the housing projects are ongoing in virtually all the 5 eastern states and are in various stages of completion.
The project, which is in 3 categories of 24 housing units of 12 blocks of 2 and 3 bedrooms, semi-detached bungalows, also has a condominium of 3 floors made up of 4 units of 1 bedroom, 16 units of 2 and 3 bedrooms, all in suites.
Very soon, people will move into it because it's a functional estate where you have everything in place, and then you don't need to share anything with other people outside that estate.
The project, situated along the Benin-Auchi Road in Wande local government area of the state, has engaged over 3,000 skilled and unskilled workers with 100% local content.
Before the ending of this January, I believe by the grace of God, the work will finish.
As at last year, the crime rate in this very community was much, but due to this project that came here, it has reduced. And I thank the government for that, for giving the youth the opportunity to work here.
The expected beneficiaries are happy, but not without some reservations.
The government should put in more effort to build more houses for workers. At least, if after serving 35 years in service, you have a house to call your own. It has reduced a lot of stress for Nigerian workers.
From Asaba, Austin Edemodo reports that some of the 68 housing units, including condominiums located at Isila Zagba along the Benin-Asaba Expressway, are due for inauguration. Some of the workers attest to the economic value of the project.
Men and female, the youth were working here.
Godwin Otobo is the team leader, National Housing Program, Delta States.
Those that are still lacking behind, they have assured us that they will be able to meet up for the presidency to come and commission the site.
From Ado-Ekiti, Tayo Shaw reports that other than providing informal job opportunities, the project, which is at an advanced stage, will reduce the housing deficit in Ekiti State.
There's various sizes of building that are going on there. 3-bedroom flat, 2-bedroom, including condominium, coupled with some other projects that are spread in various local governments. They are really feeling the impact of federal government in every local government, including the state capital here.
The projects were handed over to the contractors on February 2017. In Benin, Ogochkuka Ona, NT News.
Now, massive employment, steady empowerment, and access to affordable and decent accommodation are some of the gains accruing from the sustained deliveries of houses by the Buhari administration. Suleiman Abdullahi Rigachigum has a situation report from Kaduna State.
Definitely, it helped us a lot.
Muhammad Ghani and Hassan Abubakar are among thousands of Nigerian youths being fully engaged in the ongoing housing projects embarked upon by the federal government since 2016. The housing units currently ongoing in Kaduna, comprising 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, is designed to provide affordable accommodation for 80 households. The project is at 80% completion.
After food is housing. Therefore, government takes housing in front burner. So housing provision is a continuous program of this government, of the ministry.
The housing scheme targeted at reducing housing deficit in Nigeria in collaboration with state governments that provide the land is in phases. This is in addition to about 200 housing units provided by the Federal Mortgage Bank and Federal Housing Authority at the Millennium City, Kaduna.
Fortunately enough, I'm a labor leader, and we have been agitating for these things. And I am sure this will go a long way in reducing the deficit.
The next phase of the project in Kaduna State is in Zaria and Kafanchan. In Kaduna, I am Suleiman Abdullahi Rigachikun, NTA News.
And you're watching Weekend File on the network service of the NTA. When we return, we will get to the nitty-gritty of our conversation tonight. Join us again.
You know, from day one, Globe makes life easier. They brought us per second billing, unbelievable data packages, and even an optic fiber cable to make sure we optimize. There are two things in our lives we depend on daily: communication and information, voice and data. Whether you sell, buy, learn, teach, serve, or lead, it really comes down to those two things: voice or data. Today's world is all about you. You want what you want, how you want it, and Glow delivers. The freedom to use voice and data the way you like on every recharge. Easy.
Glow Yakata. Recharge 100 Naira and get 2,200 Naira. Minimum 500 Naira to call all networks and 10 friends and family. Plus all the data you need. Up to 6 gigabytes. Buy a Glow SIM or dial *220# to migrate. Glow, grandmasters of data.
My name is Orioye Benedict Baishimure. I am a native of Odunje Mitale community, Odunla in Ilaja local government area. I am an Empower beneficiary and teach, to be precise. Empower has seriously impacted into my business and my local community. Before the advent of the Empower program, I didn't really have the initiative of starting the business like this. And as it is now, everybody around the community is interested to work with me because of the value addition that I've added into the business. I got some of this idea through the Empower tab, the tab that was given to us. The thing has really helped my local community. The most important thing is that it has really changed the mentality of the graduates in my community.
In recent times, too many votes have been declared void, null, invalid, or spoiled. This is not good for democracy. It is time to make every vote count. Here are a few tips on how to vote. First, when about to vote, identify the political party or candidate you want to vote for. You should not vote for two parties or candidates. It has to be just one thumbprint in the right place on your ballot paper. Make sure you thumbprint on only one space. Your thumbprint must be within the space, not outside like this. Do not allow any spill of ink into another space. Never leave your ballot paper empty. Vote for one party or candidate. Do not write on your ballot paper. Just thumbprint. Do not squeeze your ballot paper once you finish thumbprinting. Place your ballot paper in the box. Enough of void votes. It's time to make your vote count. Vote the right way. This message is from the National Orientation Agency and supported by Osiwa.
This is Weekend File. Once again, we thank you for joining us. Now, housing deficits in the country is our focus tonight. And the Northwest Zonal Director, Joseph Toluhi, joins me in the studio. Mr. Toluhi, it's a pleasure to have you join us this evening on Weekend File.
Thank you.
Now, is Nigeria actually in a deficit of 17 million houses?
Thank you for that question. It's really, let me say straight away that that deficit of 17 million houses is not official. We are not able to verify the amount of deficit of housing that we have because so many parameters that will enable us to establish that we don't have. For example, before we can establish that there's a deficit of a certain number of houses, we should be able to say how many buildings are being started, how many buildings have been demolished, how many people are moving from one city to the other, what is our birth rate, what is our death rate. Do we have all these records? We don't. I think what we need to begin to talk about now is the effective demand for houses. If you look at the city, especially in the urban areas like Abuja, you will find that there are many houses that have been constructed and they're empty. If we have a deficit, why do we have empty houses? You find people moving from the urban areas, the rural area to the urban areas. And when they move, they add to the effective demand for houses. But again, the effective demand for houses is a function of affordability. Now, when we have houses, there are a lot of developers that are putting up buildings, 1,000 units, 500 units, and they put them out for sale. But people are not coming to take this because of the issue of affordability. So we should be talking about effective demand for housing rather than talking about deficit of housing.
Yeah, but one would have thought that without prior knowledge of the deficit, how would you now plan, to bridge the gap? how do you start planning when you don't know the deficit? I'm just asking, I'm just being curious, for us to establish the reason why the deficit is not important, why it's just the demand is what you're focusing on.
I'm not saying that the deficit is not important, but that we have not established the deficit. Now, the deficit or the demand for houses is important from location to location. Now, if you have houses being built in Abuja, you need to know how many people are ready to take up these houses. It's possible that tomorrow they move to another location and the effective demand will decrease. So what we do is we have pilot housing schemes where we build houses and put them out to sale for the public to buy. And then the effective demand will determine how much houses are required in a particular location. Now, for example, we have the National Housing Program, which will soon be rolled out. And these houses are being built in all the states of the Federation except 2 where we have not got land yet. And when we roll this out, we'll ask the public to come to demand for these houses. The demand for the houses is going to give us an indication of the deficit in that location. Now, if we have 500 houses and we put them out for sale, and 10,000 people are coming to demand for it, then we can know that, oh, there's a lot of demand here. We need to bridge this gap. But there are times when you have houses that are built and you put them out for sale and people are not coming. So we cannot say there's a deficit when people are not coming to ask for the houses.
And Abuja, for instance, where you have so many buildings that are unoccupied for several years. Now, how is the present administration tackling this issue? Is there any established measure that the government has put in place, to see how it can turn things around in the sector?
Yes, thank you. Certainly, government knows that there is a shortfall in houses because we have evidence of overcrowding. If you see computer buildings, we find people who are staying in our computer buildings. It means they need houses, only that they couldn't afford. You find taxi drivers, some of them live in their cars. You find people who are working in Abuja, they still live far away. If you had a good transportation system, for example, let's say between, like this train system that we now have between Kaduna and Abuja, don't be surprised that some people work in Abuja and they want to live in Kaduna because they can afford the houses in Kaduna rather than Abuja. So we know that we have demand for houses, and so government is putting up the enabling environment to make sure that people can access houses. The National Housing Policy, for example, has it that every Nigerian should own or should have access to decent sanitary accommodation at affordable costs. But the problem of housing is mainly access to land and access to finance. Because in our climate, houses are still more or less like a cash and carry product, unlike in advanced countries where you have the mortgage system. And that's why when the National Housing Policy was first formulated in 1992, it was then that the Federal Mortgage Bank was set up to be the secondary financier for houses so that people can be able to get mortgage to be able to get their houses. Now, a lot of people don't have the disposable income to afford to buy a house that is being sold for 5 million. But if they have a mortgage that they, whereby they can buy the houses and pay over 15 to 30 years, they would be able to own a house. So government is making sure that we have more access to land and more access to finance. And so government efforts is geared towards these two areas. And government is also intervening by showing the way of how to do housing, by building some houses. But we know that government cannot build all the houses that we need. And so what we are doing is just demonstration houses to show the way and also to bridge the gap and reduce the effective demand for houses.
Yes, but when you talk about mortgaging, I would have thought that we have mortgage institutions in the country that are also, piloting, the affairs of, those who are interested in owning houses. For instance, in the federal establishment, there are mortgage housing scheme that's been on for a long time now. And from all indications, it does seem that majority of the people who are into such schemes yet cannot still afford, houses. So the question is, what is the role of the major stakeholders in the housing industry? For instance, the Federal Mortgage Bank, the Federal Housing Authority, and the Estate Developers Association. What are their roles in all of this?
Thank you very much for that question. You talked about mortgage institutions. There are many organizations that have established housing schemes for their staff. What they do is they try to organize their staff into housing cooperatives, whereby they could make contributions and buy land and get a developer to develop some houses for them, or they could approach the Federal Mortgage Bank to get loans for their staff, either to buy land to build or to buy already built houses. And that is what Federal Mortgage Bank is set up to do. Federal Mortgage Bank is the one that lends on to other primary mortgage institutions. You have many of them around. And what a person who wants a house does is that he becomes a contributor to the National Housing Fund, which is managed by the Federal Mortgage Bank. And if he has been maintaining an account for at least 6 months, he is able to get access to a loan, a mortgage loan. And through a primary mortgage institutions, you have some of them like ASO Savings, like some of them around, you can apply for a loan, which is anything between 3.5 million and 15 million to buy these houses. So the organizations organize their staff into cooperatives, and they help them to access the loan. But the unfortunate thing is that the amount of money available to Federal Bank to give to lend to people who are in need of these loans is quite limited.
Okay, I asked you earlier about the Federal Housing Authority and the Real Estate Developers Association. These are key stakeholders in the housing industry. But we want to find out what their rules are in terms of what Nigerians are benefiting, from those structures, because invariably they are meant to ensure that people can access houses. Now we talked about unaffordability. We talked about houses that are empty and people are not occupied. Yet we have people who are in need of houses. So in all of this, what is the Real Estate Developers Association doing?
The Real Estate Developers Association is just an association of developers that have come together to further their own interests. And these are people who apply for land from governments and plot out the lands and make designs and build these houses so that people can come and buy. And as an association, they can easily approach the Federal Mortgage Bank, and the Federal Mortgage Bank gives them some kind of priority, because these are the people through whom they can lend on to would-be house owners. So the Real Estate Developers Association is just a kind of trade group that provides houses for the public to come and buy.
But is there any synergy between this group and government? Because after all said and done, it is a responsibility of government to ensure that Nigerians get houses. And of course, there are programs that have been rolled out over time, even before the advent of this administration for houses. Why has it not worked? Why has it not worked? Why are we still having slums in major cities across the nation?
There are a lot of challenges in the issue of housing delivery. First of all, there is the challenge of access to land. The Land Use Decree, or Land Use Act, so it's called now, vests the interests of land in the state governments through the state governors. And we find that the provisions of the Land Use Act makes it difficult for people to be able to access this land and be able to mortgage them. A person who wants to build a house, who wants to buy a house, or he wants to build a house, he has land and he wants to get a loan, but he needs the governor's consent to be able to mortgage that land. And it's known to be very difficult for those people to get the governor's consent. And so they find it difficult to be able to access the loan through the mortgage bank because of the difficulty of access to land. This is one of the problems. And another problem is this inadequate capitalization of the Federal Mortgage Bank.
Inadequate capitalization of Federal Mortgage Bank. Now, how would you assess the current programs of government, towards housing delivery in Nigeria?
Well, government will not be able to provide all the houses that are needed for the citizenry. So what they do is just to contribute to reducing the demand. And government over time has, through the various programs like the Site and Services Scheme, tried to address this issue. Access to land, government tried to get a land from state governments and plot them out, put the services of roads, power, drainage, water supply, and then give out to people so that they can be able to, and then they will be able to give them title so that they can be able to build their own houses. And then also government builds directly and sells to the public, just like the National Housing Program that is ongoing now.
Okay, now going state by state, would you think that some states are doing better than others in terms of a provision of housing?
Yes. Well, I would say yes, because the effective demand of houses is different from state to state. There are some states that don't have much of demand, especially the states that are not so urbanized. It's the urbanized states that having the problem of housing, like Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. Those are the places where we have a huge demand for houses, and it seems as if there's not enough provision. There are some other states where you have, even houses have been built, but people are not coming forward to demand for them.
Now, what do you think could be done to reduce the cost of housing in Nigeria? Is there any mechanism that you would suggest, or you have experience that could lead into reduction of housing costs, especially building materials?
Yeah, the cost of building materials, I think, is a function of our economy, because a lot of our building materials are still being imported. One of the things that could be done is to encourage the local production of these materials. There's a lot of these materials that are already being produced in Nigeria, but we can yet encourage others to be produced in Nigeria. For example, if we could get right our steel production, it would greatly reduce the cost of housing. Because all the buildings that we have the input of steel in them, but these are still being imported. And also the taste of Nigerians also, even those materials that are available in Nigeria, people prefer the foreign alternative. Material. But encouragement of local production of building materials will go a long way to bringing down the cost of houses. And also affordability is a function of access to finance. If we can get our mortgage system right, even though the buildings cost high to construct, you will find that people will still be able to afford to buy them because they are not expected to bring the money cash and carry. Imagine somebody who is renting a house at 500,000, and he rents this house for 20 years. In 20 years, he has paid 10 million, whereas it would not have cost him 10 million to build a house. If he had somebody who could loan him 10 million, or even less than 10 million, at the onset of his renting of the house, he will be able to actually own the house after a period of 10 years or 15 years.
All right, now what does the future hold for Nigerians in terms of housing, adequate housing in the next couple of years?
Well, I want to say that it's encouraging because we are still working at the problem. We're working at the problem of affordability of houses through improving access to land and improving access to finance, and also trying to work at the Land Use Act that needs to be amended so that we can be able to get better access to land, which the Land Use Decree seems to be an impediment. The Land Use Decree right now is in the Constitution, and for us to amend the Land Use Act, we have to amend the Constitution, which is difficult from our experience.
Okay. Well, at this point, we'd like to thank you for your time and your thoughts on this particular edition of the program. Thank you very much indeed, Director Joseph Toluhi. Thank you once again for coming.
Thank you.
And next on Weekend File is sports and weather situation.